I've been on YouTube for 6 years. It doesn't feel like it, but I'm one of the longest running finance educators focused on Canadians. I'm very proud of that. But I wasn't the first. I was inspired by the pioneers of YouTube, the original Canadians who taught so many of us how to invest and manage our money. And today, I want to give credit to these guys and gals. Hey guys, it's Adrian here, the Canadian in a t-shirt. And here are my favorite Canadian YouTubers for finance and investing. Right off the bat, this is going to be a personal and subjective video. I'm not saying these are the best or comparing them to others. I'm saying these are the ones that inspired me. We're very lucky right now in Canada. There are dozens of content creators to learn from. That just wasn't the case when I started. Now we have Stefan Den, Joy Yang, BD Investing, Grow with Nav. They're all fantastic and worth learning from. But they started after me, so I can't include them on this list. Likewise, there's some who started the same time as me. Daniel Pronk comes to mind. He's an absolute legend and the nicest guy. My last two honorable mentions go to two ladies who've been in the game even longer than I have. Tracy from Financial Nirvana Mama and Shay from The Humble Trader. Whereas I focus on long-term investing, Shay focuses on day trading, something I'm not brave enough to touch. If you're interested in high-risk, short-term plays, you should learn from her. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, when I decided to start YouTube, all the finance gurus were American. There were only a handful of Canadian voices, and as a fan, they gave me the courage to put myself out there and share my thoughts with the world. So let's jump in. Number one should be no surprise, Brandon BEAVIS. I've said this many times, but Brandon was my biggest inspiration. They say never meet your heroes, but I did, and he's awesome. And now, he's one of my closest friends. That's a sentence that younger Adrian would never imagine. I was a fan, first of all. Brandon was the first Canadian YouTuber that I ever subscribed to. He wasn't bragging or showing off his fancy car. No, he was just a regular guy, honest and sincere. And he broke down investing into easy to follow lessons for the average Joe. I love that. And like me, he was focused on long-term investing, building wealth year over year. That really stuck out to me, especially compared to all the get-rich-quick BS out there. I didn't agree with everything Brandon said, I still don't, and that's what makes it fun. But I agreed with 90% of his message, and I started to think, hey, maybe I could share my unique perspective. Full disclosure, I never imagined becoming a YouTuber. I've always been super private, especially online. I barely had anything on Facebook or Instagram, and as a career, I never expected to make money on YouTube. This is a topic for another video, but I was originally going to be a quantum physics professor. Then I switched gears to pursue cardiac surgery, then another 180, I became an AI engineer. My career has been a roller coaster, and YouTube was never meant to be part of the ride. But because of Brandon and what he was doing, I decided that I could give this a shot, at least as a hobby. And from the beginning, you'll see Brandon's influence on my channel. Everyone in this list is different. They may specialize in covering the latest news or a deep dive investing thesis, but for Brandon, I think of him as a teacher, and each video is a self-contained lesson. No question, I borrowed heavily from that. That's the blueprint I used, with my own spin of course. But since day one, that's how I do it. Each of my videos is a lesson, and I got that from Brandon. I remember the early days, when I was filming with the back of my phone and a cheap mic. I must have had 500 subscribers, and I get this notification. Brandon BEAVIS started following you. I freaked out. I fanboyed so hard and sent him this embarrassing message. But he was gracious, and I said, I hope our paths cross one day. Here we are, almost 6 years later, and we've been on tour together 3 years in a row. We've done collabs and conferences. I've shared the stage with him dozens of times. I convinced him to jump out of an airplane. Check out his homepage. You'll even see my face right there on his YouTube banner. Speaking of which, I gotta mention this handsome man right here, his dad, Mark BEAVIS, who officially joined the YouTube channel a few years ago. Mark's the best guy you'll ever meet, and a fountain of wisdom. Between the two of them, you won't find a better source of education here on YouTube. I'm sure most of you guys are on Blossom. It's the social media app for investors. You can read my blog posts, connect with others, follow my portfolio and stock trades, along with all your favorite creators, and it's all for free. Use my link down below to download the app. What you might not know is that Brandon is the reason I joined Blossom, way back in the early days. At the time, Blossom had about 5,000 users. Now, we have 350,000 in our community. Unreal. But back then, he introduced me to Max and the team, and he brought all of us creators together. To me, this was life-changing, and I don't say that lightly. I was a lone wolf, running a one-man show for so many years. And now, because of Blossom, I feel like I'm part of a family. That's a beautiful thing, and I will always be grateful to Brandon for that. Next up, we have another Canadian legend, Jessica Moorhouse. I don't even know where to start with her. It feels like a disservice calling her a YouTuber. Yes, she's run a fantastic YouTube channel for many years, but she does so much more than that. She's got her own website, her own blog, newsletter, her own podcast, the More Money Podcast. She's been running it for 10 years and over 400 episodes. I've actually been on her podcast. More on that later. She even has her own book. Just came out this year. Yeah, Jessica keeps busy. She is a force of nature and a big inspiration of mine. Even if you don't follow finance content, you've seen her on TV appearances, news channels, publications, you name it. What you might not know is that Jessica was actually the very first YouTuber I ever met in real life. This was years ago. I was invited to a Raptors game thanks to BMO ETFs. They put us in this amazing booth. Beautiful view of the game. And there she was, Jessica Moorhouse, along with Cornell from the Build Wealth Canada podcast. Also a great guy. Now this is crazy. I love basketball, and I could not tell you who won that game. I was not paying attention. The whole time, I was just talking to Jessica, geeking out over investing and YouTube. It was awesome. Like meeting someone who finally speaks your language. Someone who understands the journey and struggles of running a YouTube channel. Especially back then, I didn't know anyone else who could relate, and so we became friends. Soon after, she invited me onto her podcast, which was a ton of fun. I got to visit her home studio and record in person. As a fan, it's so cool being there and seeing the whole set, not just the little frame you see on camera. She even showed me a sneak peek of her book while she was still writing it, but now it's here, and I'm so proud of her. Every time I walk through chapters, I'll pass by the Canadian section, and I'll see my friend's name right there on the shelf. It's pretty awesome. Of course, I'm a little biased, but I promise, it's a great book. And unlike anything else I've seen, I've read a ton of finance books. I've got a bunch right behind me on my shelf. Link down below for a list of my favorite books. But this one is different. It's not just a guide on how to build wealth. It's not about numbers. It's about the psychology and the emotions, even the trauma that we all experience when it comes to money. And Jessica gets very personal and vulnerable in this book, sharing her painful memories of her childhood. That takes a lot of courage, and I admire her for that. So check out her podcast, her YouTube, and definitely grab a copy of her book, Everything But Money. I'll include an Amazon link down below. Up next, we have one of the biggest names in the business, Richard Coffin, also known as the Plain Bagel. Maybe I'm biased, but I love YouTubers who use an alter ego instead of their real name. It makes us feel like Batman. As he tells it, the name Plain Bagel came from an old finance professor who said, if you can't afford the cream cheese, get the plain bagel. Wise words indeed. I've been a fan of the Plain Bagel from the beginning. Back then, he didn't show his face too much on camera. It was mainly these cute hand-drawn animations, and I loved that style. He was able to break down complex, even specialized investing topics into enjoyable and digestible little episodes. They were short and sweet and fun. He'd always inject a little bit of dry humor, and we love him for it. Fast forward to today, and he recently crossed over 1 million subscribers. That's incredible. Other than my friend Shay, the humble trader, I don't know any Canadians who have reached that level. I'd venture to guess that a lot of his followers don't even know he's Canadian. His lessons and style of teaching are universal and applicable to everyone, Americans, Europeans, anywhere around the world. But no, he's Canadian through and through, and he does cover Canadian-focused topics once in a while. He even got the chance to interview our Prime Minister last year. Politics aside, that's pretty cool. You know when someone looks like a nice guy online and then you meet him and he's even nicer in person? Yeah, that's Richard. It's annoying how humble and polite he is. Even with all his success and how many people he's helped, it doesn't go to his head. He is a national treasure, and he was a huge influence on my channel. You may notice, but I tend to avoid covering the news on my channel. Partly because I don't like making videos that will be obsolete in a couple weeks. I prefer making evergreen lessons that continue to be relevant years down the line. But the main reason why I avoid the news is that Richard is just too damn good at it. I can't compete. There's no shame in admitting that. If you want a deep dive into the recent Trump tariff escalation or the effect of BRICS on the US dollar, watch the Plain Bagel videos. They're top notch, I'm telling you. I mentioned that I got to meet Richard last summer. In fact, I even got to share the stage with him in Toronto at the Blossom Tour. Our Canada-wide tour is the highlight of my year. It's incredible getting the chance to meet thousands of you guys, hear your stories, answer your questions, and have a ton of fun. We'll be hitting up Calgary and Vancouver at the end of August, and then Montreal and Toronto in September. Toronto is always the biggest show. Last year we had Richard, Brandon, Shay, Joey, BD, Daniel Pronk, Mark Beavis, Zach Hartley, Eric Nomics, Navjot, Matt Schoss. Too many to list. It was epic. And this year is going to be even better. We're going to be at the Rogers Center, aka the Sky Dome. And just look at this lineup. Plain Bagel is coming back as a headliner, and he's being joined by another Canadian legend, Ben FELIX himself. You don't want to miss this. Tickets are selling out fast. I'll include a link down below for all locations, and use my code TShirt15 to get 15% off. I'll see you there. That's a perfect segue to legend number 4, Ben FELIX. Ben is the only one on this list that I haven't met yet, but that's going to change in September when he joins us in Toronto. I'm so excited to meet him, and when that happens, I can safely say that I've met my biggest heroes and inspirations. That's a very special thing, and I'm grateful. Here's the thing, I studied mathematical physics in university. I think of myself as a pretty big nerd when it comes to numbers, but Ben FELIX, he's on a whole other level. I don't know anybody who enjoys academic financial literature as much as he does, and there's no one better than him at breaking it down. Ben covers research papers, white papers, PhD dissertations, multi-decade longitudinal studies. These are extremely dense, and Ben finds a way to condense it down to a 20-minute video. It's amazing. That's why we love him. But heads up, these are definitely not for beginners. I feel like myself, Brandon, Jessica, we cover accessible topics for beginners to intermediates. Ben FELIX, it's for the advanced crowd. But if you want to dive deep, he's your guy. And he's not just sharing his opinion. No, he's bringing the data and the studies to prove it. I've been watching him for a long time, and there have been some big changes. Ben shocked the finance world when he went from a buzz cut, bald head to a glorious flowing mane. Click on any video and in the comments, they're still talking about his hair. But the one thing that hasn't changed is his consistent message and sticking to facts, data, and numbers. That's what makes him a Canadian gem. So there you have it. Those are my all-time favorite YouTubers. They had a big impact on me, and I'm sure that all my viewers could learn something from each and every one of them. I'll include links down below to each of their channels, plus links to download Blossom and to get tickets for the Blossom Tour. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of The Canadian in a T-Shirt. Bye guys!